Good morning, evening, or afternoon, whatever time it is, wherever you are. I'm Dr. Demartini. Every week I have a brief presentation, a webinar on a different topic, all relating to you, helping you do something extraordinary with your life, helping you manage life. And this particular topic is maybe slanted a little bit for people that might be in business, maybe coaches or consultants or people in the entrepreneurial world, but it could apply to anybody. It could even apply to your family if you're a mother with kids. So you may want to pay close attention and get some notepad and paper and ready to go, or maybe get ready to take some notes. The question is, and the topic is, clients a reflection of you, or kids a reflection of you, or the people you're associating a reflection of you? This is a question that we're going to be addressing here. Many years ago, when I was in practice, I noticed that many times I was speaking to my clients, and as I was speaking to them, I was listening attentively to what I was saying, and sometimes what I was emphasizing to them was also for me. The linguist Chomsky, basically, Noam Chomsky, said that language was not meant only for others to communicate with other people. Language is also for us to communicate with ourselves. And we drew in people into our life to reflect the things we would need to also say to ourselves. And that was really interesting, because I noticed that whenever I would emphasize something to somebody as my patient, for instance, or client, that a lot of times I was talking about me. And it really hit home one time when I was having a challenge with my relationship with my spouse at the time. I noticed that I had 3 clients in a row, 3 couples in a row, and the very issues that they were dealing with was my issue that I was facing. And what I was saying to them was recorded for me. And I realized that our clients are there for a reason. And so I'd like you to write this idea down, that everything in your life is ultimately on the way, not in, and ultimately there to help you become the most authentic you, to help you live to your greatest fulfillment, to be authentic, best way of describing, to be inspired by your life. And I realized that what I was saying to them and what the clients I was getting were reflections of parts of my own life. When I really started to kind of wake up to that, I started to look at my clients differently. I had a different respect for them, because they were a value to me in ways more than just economic and more than just getting to do clinical work, but it was also because guiding me and helping me become more masterful in my own life and face my own stuff. So, but then I realized that what I was dealing with them and what I was perceiving in them was part of a perception of part of myself. What we see in other people reflect ourself. I've been teaching a breakthrough experience program, which is my signature program. I've taught 1,132 times now. And without a doubt, after doing it on over 100,000 people, that we take people that we may have it that pushes our buttons, we admire or despise or attract or repel to, that are in our life. And if we ask ourselves a simple question, to go to a moment where and when I perceive myself displaying or demonstrating what I see in them. And when I have people do that, and I've done that, like I say, 100,000 people at least, they were able to find it. And they realized that what they were projecting onto other people was also part of themselves. And so if you really want to master your own career and master your own business and take it to new levels, it's wise to pay close attention to who you're actually drawing in as clients, their reflections. And also, the level of your own business is going to be based on how well you own those parts of yourself. See, if we infatuate with somebody, we're sometimes too humble to admit what we see in them inside us. And if we're resentful to somebody, sometimes we're too proud to admit what we see in them inside us. And those are disowned parts. And every disowned part we have reflects a disempowerment within our own life. I'm going to make a statement. Maybe it's not quite in context for you, but let's just put it out there. That the level of the transcendent soul, which I'm going to call the soul, is the state of unconditional love. That when you're most authentic, when you're most poised, when you're most broad-minded, when you're able to see things from a broad perspective and see from an unconditional loving state just a moment, you realize things missing in you. But the second you live in the existential world and you go into the world where you judge things, the terrestrial world, the world of terrestrial, we are sometimes proud or too humble to admit we see in others inside ourselves. Whenever we're unwilling to own those traits, the people around us run our lives extrinsically. But when we're able to own those traits, we run our lives intrinsically. And we let the voice and the vision on the inside be louder than those opinions on the outside. So any trait, any action that we judge in other people that we can't own in ourselves is a hindrance, you might say, and a disowned part and a disempowered part that holds us back from doing something extraordinary. That's why I said again that the level of the essence of the soul, nothing's missing in you. I had a discussion with the Bonpo Lama in Nepal on this very topic. And he says beautifully, he says, nothing missing, but people think there's things missing in their life. But at the level of the existence of the senses, where we're judging and contrasting ourselves and putting people on pedestals and pits, we're too proud or too humble to admit what we see in others inside ourselves. And those parts, those non-reflected parts or deflected parts are what hold us back. And they keep us in the amygdala, because the amygdala is avoiding peaking pleasure center. And the executive center, which is a more authentic you, the more objective you, more reasonable you, more empowered you, sees things from a neutral perspective. Things from a transcendental neutral perspective. You don't fear the loss of things. You don't fear the gain of things. You're not preoccupied by infatuation, resentments, or seekings and avoidance. The very distractions in your business, the things that you infatuate or resent, take you off from with impulse and instinct away from the center. So having reflective awareness is important. And that's why the clients around you are reflections of you, because if you have a reaction to them, it's because you're having stored inside your subconscious mind memories of where you've done what you're seeing them do that's causing a reaction. That's why when I was talking to them, I'm talking to me. And I realized that what I was emphasizing to them, I was emphasizing to me, a reflection. Then I realized something else as I went along on my journey. I realized that if I wanted to play a bigger game, I noticed something. I noticed some of the most difficult clients that I had were the closest person. In fact, imagine in the twilight zone of having your own client. The most difficult client you'd ever have is yourself, if you had to manage yourself. Then comes your spouse, then comes probably your children, and then comes your closest friends or family, then your acquaintances. But the farther in space and time they are, probably the more easy to manage. Most any business finds this. And that means that if you don't have a broad vision, if you don't have a bigger vision in life, you're not going to expect to get beyond the plateaus in your life. So it's interesting, as I've said for years, and something to contemplate, if you want to make a difference in yourself, you need a vision as big as your community or family, at least. If you want to make a difference in your family, you need a vision as big as your community. If you want to make a difference in your community, you need a vision as big as your city. If you want to make a difference in your city, you need a vision as big as your state. If you want to make a difference in your state, you need a vision as big as your nation. If you want to make number one in the nation, you need a global vision. And if you want to make a global difference, you need an astronomical vision. Where your soul calls you to an astronomical vision, it gives you the overview effect. You see beyond, and you see neither positive nor negative. You don't judge, you just love. But the second you go in and place smaller down and narrower minded, a more local instead of a global and astronomical, the more likely we have the polarities and the more that we have deflections, because the second we judge, we're too proud or too humble to admit, and we have disowned parts. And those disowned parts that are not reflected, that are deflected, are the things that people push our buttons with. When we say we've got buttons, that's our disowned parts. So the reason I mention this is Because if you want to grow your business, your consulting business, your coaching business, whatever, health business or any business, or you want to grow your influence in your own family and your influence on your children and have more, less reaction and impulses and instincts distracting you and more governance, it's taking the time to reflect and look at what you see in them inside you and own that and give yourself permission to really own it all. A lot of people are still stuck in a kind of a positive thinking mentality and a moral hypocrisy mentality that you're supposed to get rid of half of yourself and someday that's going to help you love yourself. That's a farce. That's not true. You don't need to get rid of any part of yourself to love yourself. It's wiser to include it all and embrace all parts of yourself. So that leads me to a series of questions to ask yourself. When you meet somebody, a client, an employee, and you have a reaction to them, ask yourself this question: what specific trait, action, or inaction, what specific trait, action, or inaction do you perceive this individual displaying or demonstrating that you admire most or despise most, that takes you off on an impulse of attraction or takes you away in a repulsion to them? Because anything you infatuate with or resent in somebody will occupy space and time in your mind and run you, make it difficult to sleep at night and distract you during the day. And if you can't own that and see where you do that, you'll tend to be too proud to admit it or too humble to admit it. And whenever you're too proud or too humble to admit it, you're not yourself. And when you're not yourself, because you're exaggerating yourself or minimizing yourself, you're not authentic. And when you're not authentic, you don't have maximum potential and power as a business leader or a leader of any form. And so by owning those traits and realizing that what I see in them, I see in me, and asking, where do you have what you see in them? Because when I realized that whatever I was seeing in them and talking to them, and I realized I was talking to me, and I realized I had that, I found that they didn't run me, I ran me. And I found that by owning those traits, it was very valuable. In fact, you can take very powerful people and own the traits of it and realize you're not missing that, and the hero or the villain. And you can find people you even despise and own those traits too. This led me to, back 37 years ago, to go to an Oxford dictionary and just not wait for people to push my buttons to learn that lesson, not wait until I had to go and talk to people and listen to what I was saying before I did it. I went to the Oxford Dictionary and I underlined every possible human behavioral trait that I might run into in somebody, every positive, negative trait that I could imagine. And then I looked at who is it that I know that has that to the most extreme example. And then I asked myself, now, John, go and look at where you demonstrate that trait. And I went through and I found out that I had 4,628 individual traits. That I had them all. I had nice, mean, kind, cruel, positive, negative, considerate, inconsiderate, giving, taking, stingy, generous, honest, dishonest. I had every trait that I found in that dictionary. I was astonished. I realized that there was nothing missing in me. And I also realized that the trait that I thought was all positive had downsides. You know, sometimes you meet somebody and you think, oh my God, they're highly intelligent. But then when you get to know them, you find out, oh, they know it all, or they're arrogant, or they don't listen, or they want to argue or whatever. And then you find out, well, that trait that I admired has downsides. And then the trait you may dislike, maybe they don't want to do something, but then it makes you resourceful and you get creative and you come up with solutions and you realize, oh, that was actually helpful too. And you realize that every trait served, or it would have gone extinct. It wouldn't be here. And if it's there, it must be serving in some way, or it would disappear. And I realized that all the traits needed to be get rid of. All the traits had a place and a time. Like in Ecclesiastes in biblical writings, there's a place and time for everything under the sun. And I'm a firm believer that in order to really empower your life, you want to be able to love it all. And so I put together a series of questions. I call it the Dmrt Method. It's a series of questions help you own all the parts so you can empower your life, which takes your business to a new level. Imagine if you met somebody and you put them on a pedestal and you think, okay, let's say you're a coach, for instance, and you meet this other coach and they're very successful in their career and they make a lot of income and they have a lot of influence and they coach amazing people and they're leaders in their field and you're just starting out or whatever. And you look up to them and you feel relative to them a little intimidated. You're too humble to admit what you see in them inside you. imagine what happens if all of a sudden you go and, okay, what do I see in there? What specific trait, action, inaction do I perceive them? And where do I display it and demonstrate it? Imagine if you go in there and you keep looking in your life and keep scouring your life until you find it to the equal degree, quantitatively and qualitatively. And all of a sudden you're lifting yourself up and kind of bringing them down and leveling the playing field. See, when you're minimizing yourself, you're going to be altruistically sacrificing for other people. And that's not to your greatest business. And if you're looking down on people, you're going to want to sacrifice them for your business, and they're not going to want to come and do business with you. Neither one of those are sustainable because you're trying to give something for nothing or get something for nothing instead of giving something for something, which is fair exchange. But if you own them, what you see in them, and reflect, which is what this Demartini method, this questionnaire does, if you actually ask how specifically it then serves you, if it's something you dislike, or disserves you, you can actually take the infatuations down, take the resentments up, and own the traits and take out the deflections and own with reflection, and all of a sudden you play in the same playing field. Now that is what that's done for me by doing that exercise, by owning the traits of the greats, as I call them. It's opened up doorways to do lots of movies. I've filmed in over 50 movies. It's allowed me to do customers of massive influence. It's opened up doorways for economics. I mean, almost every area ended as a result of that reflective awareness and learning how to own those traits. And so it's very powerful. And I realized in my own life that anything I didn't own run my life until I own it. And anything I'm trying to get rid of in my life, I haven't gotten rid of. I actually remember trying to get rid of certain behaviors when I was younger, thinking I'm going to get rid of that and improve myself. And then I realized, you know what, I still got those behaviors. And here I am 40-something years later, 49 years later, some of those behaviors are still there. I didn't get rid of them. And I realize now I don't want to get rid of them. They're an essential component of my nature that allows me to get certain things accomplished at times when needed. And I realize there's nothing to get rid of. There's something to embrace. Like I said, how are you going to love yourself if you're trying to get rid of half of yourself? So if you want to take your business to the next level and your life to the next level, regardless of what it is, just know that the people around you have been brought into your life to point out what you haven't owned in your life, their disowned parts. That's why you marry your disowned parts, you procreate children of your disowned parts, you have clients that are disowned parts, you have employees that are disowned parts. You keep attracting disowned parts in there to teach you to own it so you can be whole and inclusive. People say they want to be loved for who they are, but if they're too proud or too humble to admit what they see in others inside themselves, and they exaggerate or minimize themselves and not being who they are in total, how are they going to be loved for it? I really believe that the signs and symptoms of our business and our physiology, psychology, sociology, and the things around our life is attempting to get us to be whole, attempting to get us to be authentic, and to help us transcend our judgments, which are our voids of missingness, and help us have fulfillment, which is to love and appreciate all parts of us. How are we going to get loved if we're not even loving ourselves? That's an interesting thing. How are we going to love other people if we can't own and love all parts of them? If you're trying to get rid of half of them, how are you going to love them? If you're trying to get rid of half the world, how are you going to love the world? And that's why I developed the Demartini method and that I teach in the breakthrough experience. That's why I want people to come and experience that, because the questions in there are eye-opening. The quality of your life is based on the quality of the questions you ask. If you ask quality questions, and what they are is basically ones that make you conscious of unconscious information in yourself and other people that you're hiding from your awareness. So if you go in there and ask, where does this individual have the opposite behavior? So you break the idea that they're always this way. And then you level that playing field and you find out where you do whatever you see in them, and you level that playing field and you find out where you have both sides in your own life. That levels the playing field. And you find out, you break the fantasies. You imagine if all of a sudden they were to have the traits you wish they'd have, and instead of the traits they have, and you had a fantasy who they are, what's the drawback if they were the way you were fantasizing? Because sometimes you don't appreciate people because you're comparing them to a fantasy. Most every relationship consulting that I get to do, when people come to me, they have a fantasy about how the individual is supposed to be, and they're angry at the individual for not living up to the fantasy. The fantasy that they're supposed to live in somebody else's values, or they're supposed to be one-sided. And that's why owning the traits, particularly the people that you admire or despise, the people that are pleasant and non-pleasant, and own them all and realize that they're in your life for a reason to guide you to authenticity, and own those. That's the purpose of the exercise, the Demartini method. There's many other values to it, but that's just one of them. So you ask yourself, what specific trait, action, inaction do I perceive this individual displaying or demonstrating that I admire or despise most? And then you go to a moment where and when perceive yourself displaying or demonstrating those same behaviors, that same trait, action, inaction, and do it until they're quantitatively, qualitatively equal. Don't stop and just look superficially and go, well, I do it, but not as much as them. Go and dig in your life and scan your life and look at where you're displaying it. I've done it on 100,000 people, and I guarantee you, you're not going to see something in other people you don't have. And you're not going to believe me until you do it. But I've been doing it a long time, and I've got plenty of cases to prove it. But you don't see things. You only resent things in others that remind you of stuff that you are too proud to admit you have, but you're carrying around inside and you're shamed about. And you're only admiring things in other people that are reminding you of stuff that you're too humble to admit, but you're holding inside admiration for yourself and pride about. When you realize that that's the reason why you're liking and disliking them, because they're actually bringing out the parts you're liking and disliking in yourself, and you actually own that and level the playing field and reflect that, you have more equitable relationships with people, which helps you have sustainable business growth and allows you to take your business to the next level. So the Demartini method is asking those questions. Then if you take the trait you admire and you ask, what are the downsides to it? And the trait you despise, and what are the upsides to it? And find the other side of it, because no trait is one-sided. You may have a subjective bias that's made you not see both sides, but every trait has got two sides. There's advantages and disadvantages for every behavior that you can imagine. That's why they're still there. I have people that say, well, that's a terrible behavior. I also have people that they're married to somebody for 20 years, and then they end up getting through a divorce, and then now they can't think of one good thing about the person. They're focused on only the negatives about him. But yet they were married to him for 20 years. Why would they marry somebody if they didn't have any benefit sides? So the reality is that we sometimes get subjectively biased, get wounded, go into our amygdala, end up getting a side infatuation, resentments, and predator and prey mentality, instead of actually going in there and becoming objective and neutral and pleasant in the sense of reflective, actually realizing what we see in others is inside us. So if you want to take your business to the next level, the exercise of owning the traits of the greats, people that you think are more positive or negative than you, that are greater in capacity than you, and own it to level the playing field so you can play a bigger game. I'm absolutely certain that that will assist you in doing it. I've been teaching people the breakthrough experience and the Demartini method for many years now, 32 plus years. I've taken, like I say, over 100,000 people through that, and I got thousands of facilitators doing that around the world too. There's no doubt in my mind it works. And so if you haven't taken the time to learn that method and learn that tool, it's a goldmine. Because I assure you that a lot of emotional frustration and baggage and emotional distraction is nothing more than disowned parts that haven't been owned. And that's why what we say to other people is talking to ourselves. And you want to make sure that when you're speaking to others, you're listening too. Because if you do, you'll realize that we're all reflections. We've heard about that kind of metaphysically, but the reality is we are. And whatever we see in others, we have inside ourselves. And we can actually learn to love those. And to the degree that we love those parts out there and those people, and love those parts inside us, and allow ourselves to be authentic in front of those people that we're no longer judging, we liberate ourselves to do some extraordinary productivity and actions. Because when we're in our amygdala, we're not at our maximum. But when we're in our executive function and we're actually able to go out and see a bigger vision and own it. Like I said, I've done this on very powerful people on the planet. And every time I've done that, bigger and more powerful things have opened up in my life and opportunities. So if you want to expand your opportunities, please learn this tool. You just learn how to ask questions where you get to have reflective awareness. And so I just want to share with you two things. One is a way of actually learning what those questions are. And we have those available for you on a special thing here. And also want to make sure you know that there's a little program coming up here that you can get, that's basically how to get out of your own way and how to increase your deserve level and finally get what you want in life by liberating yourself from that baggage. The baggage, remember, is all the disowned parts you have. that you're too proud or too humble to admit that you're judging. And all that is emotional baggage sitting there weighing you down. And so I have this special gift for you. All you got to go to dmartini.fm/deserve level, and you can get this special program right here. It says it's time to get out of your own way and increase your deserve level and finally get what you want. So please take advantage of this little gift. You'll appreciate it. And there's also a series of questions, which I call the Dmrt Method, that I want you to take advantage of also, because those questions are gold mines. I've been doing consulting and helping people for many years now, 49 years, and I've been developing this methodology since 18. I was 18. I'm 67 in a couple months, and I am absolutely certain it can make a difference in your life, and you want to make sure you master this. So just want to take the time to go over that. Just know that anything you disown is going to be disempowering you, but once you own it all, nothing's missing. And I think that's one of the secrets of life. At the level of the soul, nothing's missing in you. That's the state of unconditional love. And the level of the senses, things are missing in you. That's when you're judging. If you want to weigh yourself down and play small in life and get into a moral hypocrisies and be trapped, blaming people, that's the way to disempower yourself. If you want to empower yourself, take advantage of this